What if the richest person you ever met was the one you never noticed? Not the guy in the Italian suit, not the woman stepping out of the Mercedes, not the influencer holding up a glass of champagne on a rooftop in Dubai. What if the wealthiest human being in your entire zip code was the 62-year-old in a faded flannel shirt driving a 2004 Toyota Camry eating a ham sandwich he packed from home? You would walk right past him. You would never look twice. And that, right there, is the point. That is the trick. That is the philosophy this story is about. Because real wealth, the kind that lasts, the kind that survives recessions and divorces and the slow grinding gravity of time, is not something you can see. It is something you feel only when it is gone. And for the last 70 years, the most powerful industry on earth has been working overtime to make sure you never figure that out. Let me tell you about a man named Ronald Reed. He lived in Brattleboro, Vermont, a small town that smells like pine trees and wood smoke, the kind of place where people know your dog's name before they know yours. Ronald worked as a gas station attendant for 25 years. Then he worked as a janitor at a J.C. Penney. He wore the same coat for decades. He held doors open for strangers. He ate breakfast at the same diner every morning, a cup of black coffee and whatever was cheapest on the menu. When he died in 2014 at the age of 92, his neighbors expected nothing. Maybe a modest funeral. Maybe a small bank account with enough to cover the casket and the headstone. Instead, the lawyers found $8 million. $8 million. Exposed in a brokerage account that he had been slowly, quietly, almost secretly feeding for over 60 years. He left most of it to a local hospital and a library. The nurses who had taken care of him in his final months said they had no idea. His friends had no idea. The barista at the diner who poured his coffee every single morning for over a decade, she had no idea Ronald Reed was invisible. And that invisibility was not a failure. It was his strategy. It was, in the deepest sense, his weapon. Now let me tell you about another man. His name does not matter. Let us call him Richard. Richard lived in Connecticut. He made $300,000 a year as a financial executive. He drove a Porsche Cayenne. His wife drove a Range Rover. Their kids went to a private school that cost $40,000 a year per child, and they had 3. Richard had a home in the Hamptons. He had a membership at a country club. He had monogrammed shirts. He had everything you're supposed to want. And when the 2008 financial crisis hit, Richard was bankrupt in 4 months. Not struggling, not tightening his belt. Bankrupt, gone. His net worth was less than the janitor who was pumping gas in Vermont. Think about that. Sit with it. Because this is not a story about budgeting or compound interest or the top 10 things rich people do differently. This is a story about a lie. A lie so old and so deep that it has been woven into the very fabric of how you see the world. The lie is simple. It says, wealth is what you display. And the truth, the dangerous, uncomfortable truth, is the exact opposite. Wealth is what you do not spend. Wealth is the car you did not buy, the watch you did not wear, the house you did not upgrade to. Wealth is invisible by definition. And that invisibility is the thing the entire modern economy is designed to destroy. To understand how we got here, you have to go back, not to some abstract theory, to a specific room, on a specific day, where a group of men made a decision that would reshape the psychology of an entire civilization. It is 1929, October. The stock market has just collapsed. Not a dip, not a correction, a free fall. $14 billion in value, gone in a single day. Bankers are jumping from windows, though the newspapers exaggerated how many. The real carnage is slower. Factories close. Bread lines stretch around city blocks. Farmers burn their own crops because it costs more to transport them than to sell them. America, the roaring, jazz-soaked, champagne-drunk America of the 20s, is suddenly on its knees. And nobody knows what to do. The old economic models say that markets self-correct, that supply and demand will find equilibrium. But they don't. The depression drags on for years. It gets worse. And the people at the top, the industrialists, the politicians, the economists, they start to panic. Because here is the thing nobody talks about. The Great Depression was not just a financial crisis. It was a crisis of desire. People stopped wanting things. Not because they could not afford them, though many could not, but because the trauma of the crash rewired their psychology. They started saving. They started hiding money in mattresses, in coffee cans, in holes dug behind the barn. They stopped trusting banks. They stopped trusting the future. And for a consumer economy, that is a death sentence. If people do not spend, factories do not produce. If factories do not produce, workers lose jobs. If workers lose jobs, they spend even less. It is a spiral, a trap, and the only way out, the man in the room decided, was to make people want things again. This is where the story gets dark. In the late 1920s and early 1930s, a man named Edward Bernays was already the most dangerous person in America, and almost nobody knew his name. Bernays was Sigmund Freud's nephew, literally. He took his uncle's theories about the unconscious mind, about repressed desire, about the irrational forces that drive human behavior, and he weaponized them. He did not call it manipulation. He called it public relations. Before Bernays, advertising was simple. You made a product. You told people what it did. You said, this soap cleans your hands. This car gets you from here to there. It was rational. It was boring. It was also, critically, easy to resist. If you did not need soap, you did not buy soap. Bernays changed the game entirely. He realized you do not sell the product, you sell the feeling, you sell the identity. You do not sell a car, you sell freedom. You do not sell a cigarette, you sell rebellion. In 1929, Bernays staged one of the most brilliant and terrifying public relations stunts in history. He hired a group of young women to march in the New York City Easter Parade, each one holding a lit cigarette. He called them torches of freedom. The press ate it alive. Within weeks, the taboo against women smoking in public was shattered. Cigarette sales doubled. Bernays had not changed the product. He had changed the meaning of the product. He had taken a stick of dry tobacco and turned it into a symbol of liberation. And he did this not by appealing to logic, but by reaching into the unconscious mind and pulling the levers of desire, identity, and status. This was the blueprint. And after the war, after 1945, when America was suddenly the most powerful nation on earth, with the biggest industrial machine ever built, and millions of soldiers coming home looking for a life, Bernays and his disciples went to work on a scale the world had never seen. The entire American economy was retooled, not to produce what people needed, but to produce what people could be made to want. And the key insight, the dark engine at the center of the whole machine, was this: you do not sell a product by showing what it does. You sell a product by showing who you become when you own it. This car does not just drive. It says, you have arrived. This house does not just shelter your family. It says, you are successful. This watch does not just tell time. It says, you matter. The product became a mirror, and the reflection it showed was not who you were. It was who you were afraid you were not. Think about what that means. A man took the science of the unconscious, the most intimate knowledge we had about human vulnerability, and he handed it to corporations. He gave them the keys to the back door of your mind, and they never gave those keys back. The suburbs were the laboratory. Levittown, Long Island, 1947. 17,000 homes built in assembly line fashion, each one identical. William Levitt, the developer, understood something crucial. He was not selling houses. He was selling the American dream: a lawn, a driveway, a picket fence. And once you were inside the dream, the machine kicked in. You needed a refrigerator, then a bigger refrigerator. You needed a television, then a color television. You needed a car, then a second car, then a newer car, because your neighbor just got one with tail fins and chrome, and your old one suddenly looked shabby, even though it ran perfectly fine. This is the engine. This is the trap. Economists would later call it the hedonic treadmill, but that is a fancy term for a simple, brutal reality. You buy something. It makes you feel good for a week. Then it becomes normal. Then you need the next thing, and the next, and the next. The treadmill never stops. It is not designed to stop. You are not supposed to arrive. You are supposed to keep running. And here is where the shadow millionaires diverged from the rest of the population. Somewhere in this churning machine of want and spend and display, a small group of people figured out the trick. They did not read it in a book. They did not attend a seminar. Most of them would never use the word philosophy in a sentence. But they understood, intuitively, in their bones, that the game was rigged, that the display of wealth and the possession of wealth were not the same thing, that in fact they were opposites. Every dollar you spend on looking rich is a dollar that is no longer working for you. Every car payment, every designer bag, every bottle of wine ordered to impress a dinner guest is a transfer of wealth from you to someone else. And the cruelest part, the part that makes this a noir story, is that the transfer feels good. It feels like winning. You post a photo, you get the likes, you feel the little hit of dopamine, and underneath it all, your net worth is bleeding out like a man with a wound he cannot see. The system that drives this is not a conspiracy. It is worse than a conspiracy. A conspiracy implies a secret meeting, a shadowy cabal, a plan that can be uncovered and stopped. This is something more diffuse, more embedded, more permanent. It is a culture. It is in the air. It is in every billboard you drive past, every commercial that interrupts your show, every Instagram story that makes you feel, for a half second, that your life is not enough. The average American sees between 4,000 and 10,000 advertisements per day. Think about that number. You cannot consciously process that volume, and that is the point. The ads are not meant for your conscious mind. They are meant for the deeper layer, the Bernays layer, the part of you that is always asking, am I enough? Do I matter? Am I falling behind? The product is never the answer. The product is the temporary sedative for a question that was engineered to never go away. And the mechanism of the trap is debt. Debt is the lubricant that keeps the whole engine running. In 1950, the average American household had almost no consumer debt outside of a mortgage. By 2023, the average American household carried over $100,000 in total debt, including credit cards, car loans, student loans, and mortgages. That number is not an accident. It is the logical outcome of a system that teaches you to spend what you have not yet earned, to finance the appearance of a life you cannot yet afford, in the hope that some future version of yourself will somehow make it all work. And that future version never arrives, because when you finally earn more, the system has already shown you the next level. The bigger house, the better school, the nicer vacation. The goalpost is on wheels. It was always on wheels. Now, the Shadow Millionaires. Who are they? They are not a club. They do not have meetings. They do not post motivational quotes. Most of them would hate that I am making a documentary about them, because the entire point of their strategy is to not be seen. But researchers have found them. Thomas Stanley and William Danko published a book in 1996 called The Millionaire Next Door. It was not a self-help book. It was a research study. They went looking for millionaires in America, and what they found blew apart every assumption the culture had built. The majority of millionaires in America did not live in mansions. They did not drive luxury cars. They did not wear expensive clothes. They were welders, teachers, small business owners, plumbers, mid-level managers. They lived in average neighborhoods. They bought used cars. They clipped coupons. And they had, on average, 7 times the wealth of their neighbors who made the same income but spent it on looking the part. The difference was not talent. It was not luck. It was not even discipline, though discipline was part of it. The difference was a philosophical understanding that most people never reach. They understood that money is not a tool for display. Money is a tool for freedom, and every dollar you spend on display is a dollar stolen from your freedom. Let me be specific, because the numbers tell a story that is almost poetic in its cruelty. Take 2 people. Both earn $80,000 a year. Person A saves 20% of their income and invests it in a simple index fund that returns, on average, 7% a year after inflation. Person B saves nothing, spends everything, and carries a modest amount of credit card debt at 18% interest. After 30 years, Person A has over $1.2 million. Person B has nothing. In many cases, less than nothing. Same income, same city, same opportunities. One is free, the other is trapped. And from the outside, for all 30 of those years, Person B probably looked richer, better car, better clothes, better vacations. Person A looked like nobody, and that was the whole point. The philosophy of the Shadow Millionaire is not about deprivation. This is the part that gets misunderstood, the part that makes people defensive, the part that makes them say, well, what is the point of making money if you cannot enjoy it? And that reaction, that instinctive pushback, is itself a product of the machine. Because the machine has defined enjoyment for you. It has taught you that enjoyment means consumption, that a good life looks like a full closet and a new kitchen and a 2-week vacation to a resort where someone brings you drinks with little umbrellas in them. But ask the Shadow Millionaire what enjoyment means, and you will get a very different answer. Ask the 65-year-old retired plumber who has $1.8 million in a Vanguard account and spends his mornings fishing at a lake 3 miles from his house. Ask the former teacher who retired at 57 because her investments gave her the option to walk away. Ask the small business owner who sold his company, paid off everything, and now volunteers at a food bank 3 days a week because he genuinely wants to, not because it looks good on a resume. Their enjoyment is not louder than yours. It is deeper. It is the kind of enjoyment that does not need an audience. It is not about eating rice and beans and staring at a wall. It is about a fundamental reorientation of what wealth means. It means understanding that the purpose of money is not to buy things. The purpose of money is to buy time. Time to wake up without an alarm. Time to say no to a job that poisons your soul. Time to sit with your kids on a Tuesday morning and watch them build a tower out of blocks, without a clock ticking in the back of your head. Time to recover from a health crisis without the terror of bankruptcy. Time to think. Time to breathe. Time to live on your own terms. That is what wealth buys. Not a Rolex, not a handbag, not a first-class seat. Time. And time is the one thing you cannot get back. The one thing that no amount of money can repurchase once it is gone. The escape from the trap is not complicated. It is, in fact, painfully simple. And that simplicity is exactly why almost nobody does it. Because the system profits from complexity. The system profits from confusion. The system needs you to believe that finance is hard, that investing is scary, that you need experts and advisors and apps and seminars. The truth is this: spend less than you earn. Invest the difference in something boring and reliable. Do this for a long time. That is it. That is the entire secret. There is no hidden trick. There is no shortcut. There is no guru. The boring truth is that wealth is built in silence, in the background, in the years when nothing exciting happens and nobody is watching. But here is the hardest part, the part that keeps me up at night when I think about this story. The escape requires you to do something that the entire culture is designed to prevent. You have to be okay with being invisible. You have to drive the old car past the dealership and feel nothing. You have to watch your friends post their vacation photos and not reach for your wallet. You have to sit at a dinner where everyone is talking about their renovations and their new kitchen and their trip to Italy, and you have to smile and nod and know, quietly, in a place that nobody else can see, that you are free and they are not. That is the test. And it is not a one-time test. It is every single day, every single purchase, every single moment when the culture whispers in your ear, "You are not enough, buy this." And you have to whisper back, "I am enough, I do not need it." Ronald Read passed that test every day for 60 years. He pumped gas. He mopped floors. He ate his ham sandwich. And when he died, the people who had pitied him, the people who had looked through him, the people who had assumed his small life meant a small man, they were the ones left standing with their mouths open. Because Ronald Read understood something that most people will spend their entire lives running from. The appearance of wealth and the reality of wealth are not just different, they are enemies. You can have one or the other. You cannot have both. And the choice you make, the one nobody sees you make, at the gas station, at the grocery store, at the car dealership, in the quiet of your own mind at 2 a.m, that choice is the only one that matters. The Shadow Millionaire does not want your admiration, does not want your envy, does not want your attention. The shadow millionaire wants something far more radical than any of those things. The shadow millionaire wants to be left alone. And in a world that profits from your restlessness, your insecurity, your endless hunger for more, being left alone might be the most revolutionary act there is. So the next time you see someone who looks like nobody, think twice. The quiet ones, the invisible ones, the ones who never post, never brag, never show, they might just be the freest people you will ever meet, and you will never know. Because that is the whole point. Wealth is what you do not see. And the greatest fortunes in this country are hidden in plain sight, behind faded flannel shirts and 20-year-old cars, and the calm, steady gaze of someone who figured out the game a long time ago and decided not to play.